Thanks for clicking on the thumbnail. You want to know more about this full moon eclipse in Taurus when it comes to your chart and who you are. I will cover each rising sign later in this video, but in the first 5 to 6, 7 minutes, I'm going to talk about 3 or 4 of the things that you should know about this full moon eclipse, how it relates to a year ago and 6 months ago, and how you could focus and use some of the tools and some of the words I'm going to use to help you with your rising sign. Please support the channel, hit the subscribe button. Let's get straight to the chart. Here we go. My name is Nicolas Polymenakos, aka Sparkles of Gold. Welcome to the channel. And the chart that you see here that I'm looking on the screen is actually the total lunar eclipse chart that happens exactly at 3:02 a.m. Pacific. But as we know with eclipses, it's going to start at 12-ish here in Pacific zone and then goes through the phase of hitting the exact moment and then kind of wanes off. So it's pretty much in the middle of the night, early morning on East Coast time. I'm going to pick out a couple things here and keep it as simple as possible so you can understand the dynamics of this intense eclipse. I won't get into world politics with it, but I'm more interested in how I'm going to be able to translate to you for what it means for each rising sign and then what you can do with those words. And I want you to take notes. The reason is even though this is happening right now, this has been building for a year. Then the last chapter was 6 months ago, and then we've had these small chapters 2 weeks ago with the eclipse that happened in Scorpio, and here we are with this eclipse. Lots of intense energy going on. Let's start off with the first thing you should know. First thing is that the planet Uranus, which rules with shaking things up, an electrical, unpredictable planet whose main function is to uproot things that are not working anymore in a sense and to bring in something new. And it usually happens out of the blue. You can't quite get a hold of it, but you know that it's coming, but you just don't know when and how. This planet is together with the moon at 16 degrees Taurus. Now you're going to see this. It's Uranus and the moon, 16 degrees. 16 degrees is the degree of the full moon with the sun in Scorpio on the opposite side at 16 degrees. First off, understand that Uranus's function is to shake it up. I'm reiterating this because it's going to mean something more in the video later. It brings in new views and new ways of being, especially in the Taurus realm of your chart, or for Taurus and Taurus risings in general. This is a big deal. It affects the Scorpios too, but I want to start with that. Remember, new things, unpredictable, electric, progressive energy, rebellion, revolutionary at times. Okay? Shake up. Now, on the opposite end, we have such an interesting situation here because Mercury in Scorpio is together with the sun, and it's on its way of going through the sun at the heart of the sun as part of this eclipse and what happens in the next 24 to 48 hours with Mercury. Mercury in Scorpio speaks truth in the end, but it's hidden and can deal with secrets and things that are hidden underneath when it comes to thought and verbal processing and communication. And in the end, Scorpio likes to get down and pinpoint to the truth, even if it's the hardest truth to hear, and it can come across pinpointed and hardcore. Now, along with the sun, it's directly opposite this shake-up moving planet, Uranus that I mentioned, and Uranus is not just opposite the sun, it's opposite Mercury. So you can see here something coming out, something wanting to come out, something that we've been meditating on and digging through the last couple weeks in the Scorpio part of our charts. That is coming out now, and it will for the next week, 2 weeks, and depending on your chart, this will be for the next couple months. We cannot forget about Venus and Scorpio here because Venus deals with relationships, resources, how we acquire resources, so on and so forth. But we'll stick with love and the feminine and relationships so you could see how there's a thing about relationships here. The truth in Scorpio here and the Scorpio eclipse that happened 2 weeks ago in the South Node, this little curly Q here, that's the South Node. That eclipse had to do with purging and letting go, but first mucking around. And I did a video on this, by the way. You could check it out. I did a video on this where the Scorpio part of your chart, we're digging deep and we're going to the deepest place to eventually find what is not working anymore and something that needs to be flushed out and purged. And Scorpio is really good at this. Once they surrender in the toughest place, they surrender in a place of a thing or something they find in that poisonous dark place that needs to go, that used to be of power and that used to be working, but it doesn't work anymore, and it's been wanting to purge. Whether you've been doing this or not, I know this is out on the table for you in the Scorpio part of your chart. Now, 2 weeks later, we're here with Uranus wanting to shake that up, wanting something new to come in, coming from the opposite side. So I gave you two sides here, Uranus and the moon together. Moon, emotional coping processes, how you like to be nurtured, how you like to nurture, how you get your essential needs met. It's in the sign of Taurus, which deals with groundedness, earth, and in a sense, what makes you solid and comfortable. It has to do with what you value in the end. Taurus is about value and how value is reflected in your life and within yourself. So remember, big number one, Taurus, value, okay? Value and worth. Here in the other side, Scorpio, we're dealing with deep emotional searching and probing to getting to the heart of matters in an emotional way. And in this case with the eclipses, it's about a purging and letting go of a certain thing that's rotting and not working anymore, that's brutally honest and truthful in its way of being. So there's the two things. Here's the third. And here is Saturn at 18 degrees in Aquarius. Like, well, what's the matter with Saturn? Like, what's big deal about Saturn? Saturn's connected to this eclipse because it's at 18 degrees of Aquarius, which is the fixed sign. It's 90 degrees away from Taurus. It's 16 degrees, so it's pretty much there. It's 90 degrees from Scorpio. So this eclipse is happening in fixed signs, and it's almost, they call it a T-square. Saturn's in the middle of it, and Saturn's function is bringing boundaries and resistance and authoritative measures in the old school a lot of the times. There's another side to this, but I'm going to start that way because here, that's a story that's brewing for the world for a lot of time, is this Uranus-Saturn square. Saturn is tradition, the rules, and old school. Uranus wants to break the tradition and wants to break the rules and wants to bring in something new. And these two planets have been clashing for a while. They've been clashing since the beginning of time, to be honest. And whenever they are in relation together like this has been going on for a while here. In one way, you could say since 2020-ish, when Saturn came into Aquarius and then started finding places of close squares with Uranus. So you could see tradition, rules, structure, boundary, don't break the rules. And then Uranus is 90 degrees away, and it's like, I want to break the rules, and they clash. So there's a fundamental factor going on in this eclipse that has this signature. Okay? Now, harsh, intense. Let's stop. We also have to take into account, when we look at charts like this, we have to take into account the rulers of an eclipse. So the ruler of Taurus is Venus. So we go to look to Venus in the chart. Venus is in Scorpio, so we see the connection. We definitely know this is about relationships in all types of situations. Partnerships, relationships to yourself, relationships to the world, so on and so forth. We look at the South Node, and it's Scorpio, and we go find where the ruler is, Mars, in the current chart. And Mars is here in Gemini. Just recently went retrograde. Mars in Gemini has a story going on here of how to communicate. Too much going on. What's real? What's not in information. This is a continuing story into January. So Mars rules the South Node here, and Venus in Scorpio rules the Taurus part. Again, it's a Mars-Venus story. Very relatable, huh? Story of the universe, really, in the end, Mars-Venus. Now, saying all of that, and this is my last part, and we'll get to the rising signs. I want you to understand something here. Saturn's in between these two at 18 degrees, in between this part and Taurus part of your chart and the Scorpio part of your chart, where something needs to be purged and let go of. Something here of worth and value and something new coming in there. And they're actually balancing each other out if they're done correctly. And how can you balance this thing out? Well, my experience and my way of working with this, I'm going to tell you to look at Saturn here. The planet that I mentioned earlier that's going to bring resistance and rules and mess with this moon and clamp down on the moon and clamp down on Uranus and clamp down on Venus on this side here, Venus and Mercury, and wanting constructive speech and communication. And sometimes it can come across the other way. It's restrictive speech on somebody. But if we take a positive long-term view with this and we look at Saturn and what it can do, it does give structure and crystallization to things. And in the end, it wants to build something. So if you can find the Aquarius part of your chart, and this is the third thing I'm talking about, the Aquarius part of your chart actually could help you here, but it's actually going to show up as resistance. And the Taurus part is going to have a rebel attitude, and the Scorpio part is going to maybe deal with power and control, but really on a deep level, Venus and Scorpio, Mercury there, it really wants to find something to let go of, because it knows that in the end, to get what it wants and needs when it comes to desire and love, you do have to change things up. Sometimes it is letting go completely. Sometimes it's just finding old habits and relationships that just do not work anymore and switching them up. And you can do that with the help of Saturn and with the help of rebel Uranus. You have to take the three things and you have to work and wield them. Now, when I talk about the rising signs now, I'm going to take in those three things. I'm going to use the words shake up, new view with your worth and value. That's the Taurus part of the chart. I'm going to say letting go and purging and seeing the deep truth. That will be the Scorpio part of your chart. And then I will bring in the Saturn place that deals with boundary and resistance, but then can be turned into construction and crystallization. And that will be the Aquarius part of your chart. And I will use keywords for you, okay? And maybe I'll even put them up on the damn screen. So thanks for hanging in. And I said 6 minutes? It went 11. All right, so here we go. We're going to do Aries rising. My Aries rising, the story where the eclipse is falling, this Taurus part of the eclipse is happening in your second house. It's a place that deals with money and finances and resources, okay? Something wants to come in and something new, a new way of dealing with this, of what worth and value is in that place. And so you have that part. The Scorpio part of your chart is dealing with the 8th house, and this is fears that we have a lot of times in how we deal with fears, but it also is connected to other people's resources. So there's something there that's happening at the same time, where there's a letting go or a switch up, having something that's not working anymore in that 8th house of your chart that deals with other people's resources. The thing that can merge the two and that you can possibly work with is the Aquarius part of your chart, which would be who's your patrons, who's your supporters, who's your community and friends, and do they support your hopes and wishes and dreams? There's something happening there that's connected with the two other parts of your chart. You stuck with me there. All right, we're going to go to Taurus rising. Oh, my Taurus rising. This is a huge one. 2 weeks ago, I did the video for Scorpios. Scorpios and Taurus, I got it for you right now. Scorpio and Taurus risings, I have it for you. I understand what the hell's going on right now. So this in particular, this eclipse is happening in the place of self, your body, and vitality, what creates your personality. And something is changing there. Something new wants to come in with Uranus being there. It's shaking that up, that part of you, that stubbornness part of you, by the way, too. Something needs to be changed, and I think it's a great thing. And you've been dealing with this since 2018. Now, the eclipse that happened 2 weeks ago in Scorpio, that fell in the house of partnerships and relationships. So there's something changing there and needing to let go of. It doesn't, again, I want to be clear on this. Sometimes it's just a way of being and standing. And if you bring in yourself, Taurus rising, and you bring in the other, whoever or whatever the other is, it's just the need to balance it. And there's something new coming into this place of self, and there's something in the place of partnerships that just needs to switch up and leave. And they actually eventually can be incorporated together. And the way you can do that is actually look for Taurus risings to the 10th house of your chart, which is the place of reputation and public status. In a sense, you can channel energy into your career and your reputation and what you're worth and what you've who you are of worth and value, and how this new way of you could be shown, actually can be shown through your work and how you portray yourself publicly, and actually will eventually affect your relationships and affect how you stand in relationships. And you'll, I think, see growth and evolution there. It takes a little bit and it takes a lot of hard work, but you could see how I brought the three things together. So my Gemini risings, this one's a tough one, I think. This eclipse in Taurus is happening in the place of your chart, which they call the 12th house. It's a place of isolation. It represents sorrow and grief, actually, and it also represents a place of going to rehabilitate oneself, like in their temple or their cave. And this eclipse is happening there in Taurus. Now, the eclipse that happened 2 weeks ago, and the Scorpio part of this eclipse is happening in how you deal with your daily regimens, your body, and in a sense, how you serve yourself and serve the world. And something there's a connection of wanting and needing to let go of something that doesn't work anymore. And a place to branch the two is they say the ninth house of your chart for you Gemini risings, and this ninth house of the chart has to do with your spirituality. It could mean religion. It can mean the quest that you're on. And so seeking higher truth, taking a workshop, taking a course, this can, in a sense, eventually create a container for you to work these other two parts of your chart, especially the place of isolation and what you're dealing with there, and possible a type of secret loneliness you have. And an example of using this is seeing a mentor or reading a book or something that's self-help to switch things up for the Gemini brain and how they get wired, and to switch that up, and eventually will show up and bring value to how you stand alone by yourself. All right, my Cancer risings, the eclipse is happening in the place, the 11th house, that deals with your community, in a sense, friendships, your patrons, your supporters. It also is connected to your hopes, wishes, and dreams. And there's something new that is wanting to birth here. It's something that come in, but you have to open up and allow that to happen. On the opposite side of the chart is the 5th house. And this is the house of pleasure and creative expression. And so something there has been having to be switched up and let go of. And I think if you work in tandem with these things and understand both sides of your chart, that 5th house and that 11th house, then you can bring in, which is the third pillar that I'm talking about, which is, in a sense, the 8th house that deals with legacies. By the way, it deals with other people's resources. There's a penchant and a way to occult matters there, but there's something there in the end that deals with intimacy and digging down and going through shadow and creating and beating a fear, a certain type of fear. You could say, quote unquote, a fear of the dark. And by moving through those shadows of the 8th house, you can get a better foundation and use current transiting Saturn in there in Aquarius to help you balance this friends and community part of your chart with the part of the chart that deals with creative endeavors and pleasure, maybe a little too much or something doesn't work there anymore, going overboard in pleasure, and getting through the fear of just being, in a sense, alone and walking through the dark, and finding a pillar and foundation and a crystallization there. I know it's intense. I get it. Okay, so Leo risings. This eclipse is happening actually in you're going to love this shit. It happens in your 10th house that deals with achievement, your public status, and how people see you. This place also has to deal with fame. Okay? So your worth and your value, there's something new being brought in there, something being shaken up, another way of viewing what that means to you and how people view you there. And remember the keywords, your worth and value in that area of your chart. Now, the Scorpio eclipses and the tie-in here happens in the part of your chart that deals with home and memories and ancestry and your parents. And so there could be something switching up there too. That's something that needs to move or need to be let go of, or it's been presented to you that way, where something a goodbye of some sorts, or there's just a goodbye to a way of being stuck emotionally in the past in matters of home and family. So that's the Scorpio part of your chart. It's the fourth house. The third place that I bring into here is the place of relationships and partnerships, which is the seventh house in your chart. And that's the Saturn part of this eclipse, where in a sense there could be some restriction coming from those areas, from partnerships and people triggering those two other parts of your chart. If you use it in a positive way, as Saturn as a constructor, as a builder, and as a crystallizer, here you can get help from partnerships. Here you can get help from relationships, and they can help that public status of yours and that fame part, and they can help you deal with the transition and letting go of certain issues that happens with your past, home, family, and lineage. Virgo risings. This eclipse in Taurus is happening in the ninth house part of your chart. This deals with being on a quest. It deals with higher learning, higher truth, foreign travel. It deals with your spirituality. It deals with religion, in a sense, and faith. And there's a story of finding some worth and something new of value to you in that part of your chart, because the eclipse is happening there with Uranus that wants to bring in something new. Now, on the opposite side of that part of your chart is the third house, and the third house deals with the third house deals with your immediate surroundings, friends in a sense, your siblings, and how you construct in the beginning mentally. And there's something there that is leaving or needs to be left and purged out in the Scorpio part of your chart that's been part of this story, and that you saw 2 weeks ago. If you haven't had the hint the last couple of weeks of friends, or maybe there's been a disconnection, or like, who are your friends, or my immediate surroundings, am I even connected to them anymore that I used to be? And on the opposite side, where this full moon eclipse is happening, something new's coming in there about seeking something and more farther reaches, more farther knowledge, something higher, something more spiritual, and a way to possibly branch these things, these two opposites in a sense, together. We're going to look to the house that I think you'd be very familiar with, and it's the sixth house. And this house has to deal with service. The old school word for it is servitude, but we're not going to think about it in that sense anymore. But it has to do with service in the sense work, and what you do daily, day by day, and the structures and regimens that you have to help you get day by day, and how you are of service to yourself. And Saturn right now is in that area, I think, for the last 2 years, wanting to reconstruct that area. Now, in some instances, for some of you Virgo risings, that's where the hard part could be coming from, is someone you might feel like you're like in servitude, or that you're not being recognized for the work that you do, or how you do it, and it's affecting you. So we want to turn that story around with Saturn, and we want to construct something there. And Saturn is the middle point of your ninth house that I mentioned in the beginning of higher learning, and your third house of your immediate surroundings, and it can branch the two together. Libra rising, this eclipse falls into your eighth house. This deals with the occult matters, other people's resources, and what you fear too, and what's hidden in the dark. And I think here too is where you can really see it, though, is with other people's money, or stuff that you're connected to, family members with money who've been helping you out, or that you need to ask help from, the bank, some sort of other resources that you're needing to tap into to help you out. And here there's a story that's going on, that something needs to be shaken up there, and something of worth, of new value needs to be brought into the space. And it can be difficult because of the tie-ins with those other people and their resources. The eclipse that happened 2 weeks ago in Scorpio that's tied into this is actually happening in the place of your chart that deals with the resources that you construct, the money that you make, the who you are of worth and value, and how that is reflected in your life. So money's on the table here in all forms and fashions here with this eclipse for you Libra risings. Now, the third part of this is looking to the the 5th house of your chart, which deals with pleasure and creativity. And I think creative output and constructing something creatively can give you better insight on these 2 other parts of your chart that deal with resources and cash, and how you can make something, create something, or how you can participate with someone else to create something. This part of the house deals with kids too, and children, which is fascinating. But it's kids and children are a byproduct of creation in a sense. So you can use that as a metaphor. At the same time, you could find you could find resistance in your creative area. And I think this is a place where you can reconstruct and reevaluate how you create things in your life, how you deal with pleasure, what that means to you. And then you can use that to balance that part of your chart that deals with other people's resources, and you're tying into them, and how you create your own resources and bringing those 2 things together. Scorpio risings. By the way, a bunch of you who've been watching my videos, who watched my last Scorpio video on this eclipse, you got a hold of me. Whether you had money or not, you paid for a reading, or I did what I could for you, and I'm still there for you. And I have a personal connection to you and to all of this. And so this eclipse is happening in the relationship part of your chart, in the area of partnerships. And there is something to be found there. Something beautiful, actually, to be found there. And not just the way you relate to yourself, but what relationships mean to you, and what is of worth in relationships. And you've been dealing with an eclipse for the last 2 weeks, and all these planets in Scorpio you were having to dig up of where you stand with yourself, and certain things that don't function anymore, and certain aspects of your Scorpio rising self that have been hard and have some darkness, and you've been confronted with that, and hopefully you've been seeing ways for you to let go. And so this eclipse 2 weeks later is happening in your relationship house. And the reason why I'm posing it this way is I think there's something for you to find here of new worth and new value. And it actually can be to people that are close to you, that to people that you realize what their worth is, and the type of grounded energy they can bring into your world, that you don't have to fight it alone. You don't have to fight it alone, but you also need to be respected, heard, and seen, because you're going through it right now. Who are the people that you can trust? Who are the people that have your back truly? Who's been there? Who has been there? Who can be there? And that's the reevaluation of relationships. So there's something new with this eclipse coming into your relationship house. Now, the third factor here is looking at the part of your chart that deals with home and family and memories and ancestry. And there can be some difficulties here that prop up in the beginning of like bringing resistance to parts of your world. But if you can get past that resistance and turn the resistance to reconstruction and crystallization, that someone in your family or something from your past, or something's moving and changing in the place of home, could actually bring a different type of way of merging a part of yourself that needs that story of needing to let go, and then the relationship part of your house or part of your chart of something that needs to come in that's new and of worth of value, and that place of home where you could find a pillar and a foundation in to support those 2 sides of your chart, okay, which would be the 1st house and the 7th house of relationships, and then that stability you can bring in the 4th house of home, the past and memory. Look to your past, look to your dreams, look to the memories of family, and you'll get the clue. And I know you're digging for it, Scorpio risings. The special's still going on for you, man. Hit me up. I love working with you all. Sag rising, this is happening the 6th house. This eclipse is happening in the 6th house of service, servitude, the little things, pets, if you can believe this. There's an influx of something new wanting to come in there with Uranus, wanting to rock the boat there, wanting to bring something of value and worth to you, something that you might not even know if you're even comfortable with, but it's rocking that area of your chart. Now, the other side of your chart that deals with and I'm always looking at my notes here because you can see what I'm doing is a lot. The other part of your chart here deals with the 12th house. The Scorpio part of your chart that's had the other eclipses happening on the other end, like 2 weeks ago. There's something here that has dealt with like what isolation means to you, with purging the addict of your mind, the basement of your life, things that need to be let go of, this place that can be filled with sorrow and grief, actually. And the way you process that, something is being wanting to be let go and purged, excreted out. Okay, so the Taurus part of the eclipse is happening in your 6th in servitude and work and how you work. The other eclipse has happened in that part of meditation and at times the loneliness and the sorrow and grief. And the way you can work these two together if need be is you go look to where Aquarius is in your chart currently. And it actually has to do maybe talking to your siblings, your brothers and sisters. Maybe it's taking a walk around the block and noticing what's around you. This area of the chart also has to deal with short-term travel too, and friends. So go look to your friends. Maybe you've been catching grief actually from some of those people. If I would merge this, that's another way this can work too, that you've been catching restriction and grief from friends and from siblings. But maybe if you can find a reconciliation process, it actually can affect your body and the daily activities that you do every day so they run smoothly, and also merge and purge that part of your chart that deals with isolation and depression and so on and so forth. There's a way to branch the 12th and 6th houses together, and it possibly could happen in your 3rd house. You feel me? Got it. Capricorn risings, this eclipse is happening in your 5th house of creative expression and pleasurable activities. Lucky you, you got that rocking and rolling. It's been happening there for a year now. And I think it's great, but sometimes we have a resistance to things. Like Capricorn risings, they're so damn serious all the time and play by the rules that they need rules to have fun. Well, if you do, I got it for you. So something new is coming in that pleasurable place on the opposite side of the chart where these other end of the eclipses have been happening. This has to do with your friends and community, your patrons, the people who are affiliated with you, and maybe you've been catching, it's not been flowing there for you pretty much, and something is needed to change and to be let go of there, and will continue to be let go of there. So you want to look at both sides of the chart, and you want to bring in pleasurable activities for you to be comfortable in them and to see where you stand and what your worth is in that place. Now, the other third pillar of this is to look to actually the place in your chart that deals with you creating money in your resources. And you've actually, for the last 2 years, have probably had some stubbornness going on there, or some restriction when it comes to bringing in money or extra money, or having to slow down on how resources are created. And it's still functioning there. But if you turn that story around and you use it with these two other parts of your chart in the eclipses, you can actually bring in resources to help you. And in the end, have some things fulfilled with your creative output and how you stand with pleasurable activities and just having fun in the world and letting yourself go. You just need a little bit of stability and some rules in the container. And Saturn can bring that for you. And Saturn working through your 2nd house by helping you bring in a new resource in tandem can give you some freedom in the place of pleasurable activities and help you let go of certain things that are happening in the community aspect of your chart and with people who support you in that area, or they weren't supporting you. You feel me? All right, Aquarius rising. This eclipse in Taurus is happening in your 4th house of parents, father, memories, ancestry, home, which is very tangible. Something new is coming in there. Something the boat's getting rocked there. In the end, besides the material part of world, and then a story of lineage, you want to think of this as something beautiful and good. That there's something trying to burst through to show you something about yourself there that has to do with a new part of who you are and how you value yourself in that area of home as a parent, or dealing with parents, or that lineage thing. The older part of the eclipse in Scorpio 2 weeks ago was happening in your career and reputation part of your chart, and it has been happening there. These two work in tandem. So home, your 4th house where the Taurus eclipse is, The South Node eclipses in Scorpio are happening in the place of career and public status and your reputation. Something's letting go. Something needs to be let go of there. Something's come in and rocked and is not working there anymore. These two parts of your chart are working in tandem together with the eclipses. And a thing that you can bring in as the third thing to help you branch these two, which might be difficult at first, but if you grasp it, you can work it, has to do with what did I write here, Aquarius rising? It has to do with something you've been dealing with since 2020, which is Saturn going through your first house of self, where your personality is derived from, everything, your physical body, your bones, actually. You've probably been slowed down energy-wise, but I think here after 2 years, you only have a little bit more of working with Saturn and Aquarius in your first, and this is where you apply it. You apply it working with what home means to you, what your home surroundings are, what parents are to you, and what family is, and you construct something new with that there, or you crystallize the focus and how you stand in all that. And not only that, you use the Saturn in your first part of your chart to deal with the reputation in the career part and to construct something to help you in that area to let go of something. A lot of this has to do with boundaries and rules, but if you take the words of boundaries and rules and turn it into reconstruction and recrystallization, then you can use both these three parts of the chart together. It's kind of like a triangle. Astrologically on paper, it's a harsh thing, but I am always looking for a way for people to work things and to use things as a tool. And you, Aquarius rising, are an ingenious person, and you will find a way. You will. Pisces rising, my last. You're always last on these damn lists, aren't you? Listen, this eclipse in Taurus is happening in the place that deals with, in a sense, friendships, your siblings, your immediate surroundings, also how you first start to construct things with your mind. And there's something grounded here that could be found. And even though it might not feel grounding with a planet like Uranus and Taurus and this full moon happening there in the eclipse, there's something that wants to come in that's new. And that of new brings something new, a new value, new reflection of worth for yourself. And you have to let that come into your world. On the opposite side of your chart, the Scorpio eclipses on the other end that happened 2 weeks ago and are part of this eclipse cycle, you know, the part of your chart that deals with like spirituality and faith and seeking something more and seeking the higher truth, there's something there too that is needing to be let go of. And but there's something that needs to be purged. And it can be a brutal truth, and it can be something connected to your faith or what was part of your spiritual code or ethical code. And so you have that part of your chart, the 9th house, and you have this other Taurus part of your chart, the 3rd house, and they go hand in hand. And the way to work with something is to work with both, but maybe to bring in this third thing I mentioned in the beginning of this video and look to the Aquarius part of your chart, which has to do with meditative place, isolation and exile. And it sounds harsh, and it actually deals with pain and sorrow and grief. And there's something there that is connected to all this. And you know, and especially in this eclipse, because it's all tied in together. And I will give you a pep talk here. What I'm saying to you, Pisces rising, is in the end, I think hope and faith and optimism are great, and they're part of your repertoire. But I think it also needs a container, and you can wish for things, and you can have those things come true. But a lot of times, the things that we want and wish for and aspire to, and the quest that we're on, we need structure to help us get there, and we need work. We need to build something. And here, I think you can take all these three major parts of your chart and find a meditative place and think about the system and the container you can create to bring your hopes in not just your hopes and wishes, but what your spirituality is to you. And if you're not a spiritual person, this could actually mean a place of higher learning. Something new needs to come in there. And what can help you out is calming your brain, looking to brothers and sisters, let's say, looking to friends and neighbors around you who will understand your story and your plight. And in there, I think you can find a new part of yourself and have value and worth reflected to you from those arenas, from friends, neighbors, siblings. Thank you. I just went through the 12 signs. I think I'm 40 minutes into this video. I want to end it like this. These eclipses, they're intense, and we all know they can be harsh. I've been doing this video thing for a year. I started doing it actually when these eclipses happened last year, when the first eclipse happened at 27 degrees Taurus. I've been doing these videos. I did 2 videos or whatever at the end of April and in May when these eclipses happened. And I could tell you, it was intense times for me. Intense times a year ago. Intense times now. Intense times for everybody in these parts of your chart. But this is what you got to remember. You are worth it. You are worth everything that you want and see in your dreams. And if they're not happening, you're worth it right now. You could tell yourself that you deserve the best, that you deserve happiness, peacefulness, and calm. You deserve beauty. And even in the darkest places, to be able to step out and see your power as a human being about the value in those places. In the end, it's not a competition about Scorpio against Taurus or Taurus against Scorpio. This is a spiritual thing. It's about understanding the gifts that come through astrology, through transits, but most of all, beyond all of that, the gift of looking at yourself and telling yourself, I am worth it. You feel me? I feel you guys out there, and I mean it when I say it. You repeat it to yourself tonight, tomorrow, whenever you see this video, like, I'm worth it. The whole damn chart, I'm worth it. I'm an incredible, beautiful human being with faults and all, and I'm rare and amazing, and I'm worth it.